name's Jen Siskind, and about 2 years ago I started volunteering for Food and Water Watch. I took a volunteer position as a local coordinator, and I'm now spending all of my time trying to direct Connecticut's attention towards fracking. And the reason why I'm doing that is partly personal. My family in Pennsylvania over the years has slowly had fracking come closer and closer to their homes. And my mother now has 4 sites around her house. The closest is 2,000 feet away from her bedroom window. And when we first started to recognize that neighbors were going to be selling their land or leasing their land for these fracking pads, I decided to look into fracking as much as I possibly could. I've probably spent several hundred hours reading on the internet articles and scientific abstracts. And what I found here in Connecticut when I started focusing on this is even within our environmental community, there are people who are uneducated about fracking. And I use an example, when I got on the bus to go to the climate march, I'm always looking at organizations of people as an opportunity to bring people together, sign a petition that we're working on, pass out information. And as I was doing that with the line that was getting on the bus, one woman said to me, "Oh no, I don't want to sign your petition that says we're going to ban fracking waste in Connecticut because I think that's too extreme." And I said to myself, wow, this is somebody who's going to a climate march, but they think we shouldn't ban fracking. And I've found that over and over again. Terry and the Interreligious Eco-Justice Network has thrown some incredible climate summits over the past couple of years. And I've attended the past 2 of them, and people attending these climate summits, their comments were, "Well, we're not fracking in Connecticut, right?" I said, "No, we're not fracking." "Oh, okay, so we don't have to worry about it." Or, "Wait, isn't natural gas a bridge fuel?" How many people think natural gas is a bridge fuel? So I'm speaking a little bit to the choir here today, but my point is, even when I'm talking to green committees at churches, sustainability committees organized within town governments, environmental activists, they still don't realize how bad fracking is and how Connecticut is going to be affected. Every time we frack a well, we're injecting it with, on average, 5 million gallons of water that's been permanently contaminated with 50,000 gallons of chemicals. That water is permanently removed from our water cycle. It will never be potable again. Now, all of that water gets injected into the ground to break up shale to extract either oil or gas. And some of it comes back up to the surface. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of gallons of this chemically toxic waste that's coming to the surface that we're having to dispose of. And not only does it have all the original chemical constituencies that go into the fracking fluid, it's also extracting from the ground what's buried a mile deep that humans should never have any personal contact with whatsoever. We're talking about arsenic, lead, heavy metals, naturally occurring radioactive materials. And for the Marcellus Shale deposit, which is so close to us in Connecticut, it runs from mid-New York State down through Pennsylvania, West Virginia, a little bit of Maryland and Virginia. It is one of the most radioactive deposits of shale in the United States. So when we're sending all this fluid into these wells, what comes back up to the surface not only has the original chemical constituency, but it also is pulling with it all the heavy metals and the radioactive material, particularly radium, coming to the surface. Now, radium is a known carcinogen. It attracts itself to calcium in your body if it gets inside your body, so it's particularly known to cause bone, liver, and breast cancer, areas in your body where you have calcium. And all of this waste that we're producing out of Pennsylvania is being shipped mostly out of Pennsylvania into other states. It's It's being shipped into New York State, Ohio, West Virginia, New Jersey, and we've had some unconfirmed reports that we've been receiving it in Connecticut, but I don't know that that's accurate. I can't give a definitive answer on that. But we do know that last year, our state legislature tried to ban fracking waste from being brought into Connecticut. And we had a bill that had tremendous support in the Environment Committee. It passed through the Energy Committee. By the time it got to the floor, it started being compromised. And some of our legislative leaders who were actively supporting this bill also started compromising how much support they were going to put into it. The reason being, our governor, Governor Malloy, and our commissioner, Commissioner Klee from DEP, were not supporting passing this bill. In fact, Commissioner Klee was attending legislative hearings and actively providing testimony that he would like to regulate fracking waste being brought into Connecticut. The reason being is states are making money out of taxing and permitting all this waste. And we don't want to see Governor Malloy and Commissioner Klee regulate waste here in our state. Now, the bill did go through on a compromise basis. It had some very positive response in that we are now the first state in the nation that designates fracking waste as hazardous waste. And that determines how you can dispose of it, where it can go, and how it has to be transported and labeled as it's being transported. However, when the bill passed this past spring, the legislature specifically gave instructions to DEP that we will regulate fracking waste as early as 2017. 2 years from now, DEP needs to submit regulations. Now, thankfully, the language in the bill was salvaged in that it said when they submit their regulations in 2017, they could submit regulations that call for a ban on fracking waste. Or they could submit regulations in a manner in which Commissioner Klee and DEP find to be reasonable. And so far, we've been tracking some comments made by the Commissioner on radio and at forums such as this one. And Commissioner Klee has said, well, I've been talking with all these other regulators around the country, and I think we're going to look at how some of the states are doing the best job regulating that waste. And Colorado and California are two good examples. Well, I can tell you we have offices in both Colorado and California, and they are having terrific problems with contamination due to fracking waste. So we don't want to use them as models. When these regulations get submitted, they're going to first be reviewed by a committee that's about a dozen legislators. It's not clear at this point in time whether once the committee, the Regulatory Review Committee, receives these regulations, whether there will be any public hearings on it. It could be something that's only looked at on an internal basis without any opportunity for the public to further comment. It's possible they could open it up for public comment, but at this point in time, we really don't know. And so what we are trying to do right now is get people interested on a very local level within your community on stopping fracking waste from coming into your town. It's something that we've had huge success with, particularly in New York State. And I've got this back at one of the info tables. This is a list of all the towns in New York State. It's 180 towns that passed their own moratorium or bans on fracking and fracking waste. And in the yellow in the middle are an additional, can't read without my glasses, are an additional approximately 90 towns that were actively working on passing their own town ordinance to ban fracking waste and fracking within their borders. And because in New York State we generated such an incredible grassroots response, this had huge impact in getting New York to ban fracking most recently this past winter in December. And this is what we're not doing in Connecticut, and this is what we need to be doing in Connecticut. We have the system available. We have green committees in churches churches. We have sustainability committees already organized by towns. We have people active with their land trusts. We have people active with water conservation and protection within their towns. And so we have groups that we can tap into, but what we need is to start organizing people to do this. We need volunteers within the environmental community who are going to start making phone calls saying, hey, let's organize a meeting next week. Can you come, can you come, can you come? Let's talk about how we can prevent fracking waste from being brought into our town. Because if we turn Connecticut into a map like this one, where all these colored towns are starting to organize, we're bringing people not only into a fight against fracking, we're bringing people into the broader environmental movement. Most people will only get involved in something if it directly impacts them. You know, the NIMBY response is huge, not in my backyard. And if we've got a huge population of people who are not yet connected to the environmental movement in Connecticut, if we get them organized with something within their very own town, saying, not in my backyard, you're not going to bring fracking waste to my backyard, then we're going to be able to bring them into the broader statewide movement of dealing with gas, all the fracked gas that's going to be piped through Connecticut, all the issues that we need to face, changing our regulations in the state so that we're not being taxed, we're not being tariffed for fossil fuels, and we're moving towards a sustainable, renewable energy policy. And thank you very much. I do have a petition in the back. So again, on an organizational basis, if the 55 people sitting here in this audience want to get involved, we need your name so we can contact you about this. So thank you very much.